Hi everyone, and welcome back to Sweet Skeins, a knitting and crochet podcast by me, Candy. Handmade by Candy is my handle, I guess. I have a finished object, I'm in a test knit, and I have progress on everything I've talked about from last time. Who am I? It's also been less than a month since I filmed, so I'm feeling really good about myself and my knitting progress despite working around time with 2 kids. So you can find me. I'm really not that great about posting on Instagram, but I am on Instagram as Handmade by Candy, as well as here on YouTube. Please feel free to like and subscribe if these videos speak to you in any way. I am by no means a slow knitter, but I'm not gonna claim I'm a fast one either. I feel like I can knit at a pretty good speed. I just don't always have a ton of time. So I can either make a lot of progress or no progress. And the frequency of my videos is gonna vary depending on how much I get done and how quickly I get it done in. So anyways, I am, like I said, this is our 3rd installment of the Sweet Skeins podcast. I am excited to still be doing these. My kitty cat is trying to meow, so I'm sorry if you hear that in the background. I am in my daughter's room today, 3rd filming location for the 3rd episode, just trying to figure out where the best place to do this is, for lighting, for background, for less intrusions, and so far I like this, other than the cat component. So we will see how this goes. Anyways, we're gonna move on and start with the finished objects. And that is something I have not shown at all yet on this, but I have talked about it. I wanted to make the Dude hat by Ashley Baah, spelled Ashley ASHLEYBAH, on at least on Ravelry. It's the Dude hat. There's your texture. It's really squishy. But I started and finished this for my mother's husband. It's an early it's a Christmas present I have finished early. I managed to do this in 3 days because it's just so squishy. It's worsted weight. It worked up so fast. It is obvious. Well, I shouldn't say obvious, but most hats are knit from the bottom up, and this one was no different. I opted to do a 1x1 ribbed cast on, which I will link the video I used down below. It's by Jolla. It's a couple years old, but it basically has you cast on. It reminds me of a tubular cast on, but without the extra setup. So you can kind of see how it just kind of wraps around nicely. And my ribbing is not perfect. On the inside is proof it's handmade. I have some pearls where there should be knits. There's a couple right there. But you can't really tell from the front. So I'm very excited about that. He loves the color purple. It's probably his favorite color. So I did do this in Rose Worsted by Ruby and Roses. Here's what I have left of a skein. I used just over half. And I knit this with the intended or the recommended needle size for the pattern, which is 5.0 millimeters or a US 8. And that is also what the ball band recommends. I am generally a loose knitter, so I tend to have to go down in needle. And I would say that I will probably make this hat again by going down in needle size to use up the rest of this, because if I go down in needle size, it will offset the slight difference. I will also say that I might drop 2 needle sizes next time and do the ribbing in the smaller, and then increase to drop to a 4 millimeter for the ribbing, and then do a 4.5 millimeter for the pattern stitch. which this is a free pattern, so I feel comfortable saying you knit a row and then you knit 2 rows and then you do 2 rows of knit 1, purl 1, and that's what gives you this squishy texture. And then the decreases are pretty awesome too. They're nice and clean. I have not blocked this. I don't know that I'm super worried about doing it since it is a hat and it just sits really nicely. It's big on me, but I have a generally average to small to average head on the low end. So I'm thinking I'm going to use the rest of this yarn and make my daughter a hat, and she has a above average head for her size. So I'm thinking that's what I'll do. Start with the 4mm needle for the ribbing and then switch to the 4.5 for her and use up the rest of this yarn. I love the yarn, super soft, super squishy. It's 100% superwash merino 4-ply, 218 yards to 100 grams. And when I weighed this, I used 118 yards. So I think it was like 0.54 skeins were used. But it's my first time using Ruby and Roses, and just based on this, I am so glad that that's the Advent I chose to get for Advent season. So that's my one finished object that it's just going to be a one-hit wonder as far as this podcast goes. So, oh, sorry, I bumped the camera. We're going to move on to whips. And my first whip I'm going to share an update on is my rose cardigan, which I don't have the cardigan with me again. I apologize if that's disappointing, but all I'm working on right now is these cable bands and that go along the collar. I am, for the size I'm making, which I'm pretty sure it's the smallest size because of just how much ease is in it. I'm supposed to knit this until it is 28 inches long. It is currently 22.5, so I am getting there. And I got slowed down by having this second one, trying to make progress on both. But compared to the last episode, I marked where I was. This pink stitch marker right here is where I was the last time we filmed. So I knit, and I measured this before I started filming, 5.5 inches on both. So I have about 5.5 to go on this one that's already long. And I think I am, just for the win, for the endorphins, for the mojo, going to switch back to just doing these one at a time instead of 2 at a time. I've placed my stitch marker here, a stitch marker where I will be leaving off with the shorter one, and then on this longer one I will move it up. I am at a finished repeat, so that's the good news. I can just pick up from the start of the 8-row repeat for whenever I come back to the little one. But I would like to have the fun win of being able to say one is done and getting it on, try it on tubing or something. I don't want to cut the yarn from the skein in case I need to make it longer. I do not think I will need to make it longer, but just in case, I do not want to snip. The less ends I have to deal with, the better. And that way I don't have to join just to do a couple rows if it comes down to it. But so yeah, this little guy probably won't get any more done on it until this one is finished. But that's where I'm at with my rose cardigan. And next time, maybe I will bring up the actual cardigan part that I have done already. This is literally the last part and getting them seamed on. This is Baah Yarns, the La Jolla base, and I don't have the colors written down in my notes, but they're all on my Ravelry page, which I will link. So that is whip number 1. Whip number 2 is my Ziggy Interrupted, which is a crocheted shawl. Last you saw it, I stopped in the middle of a row, shame on me, but here's our stitch marker because I had not quite finished this top row of squares yet. So that's where I left off. I think I had 3 of those left last time, and I have since done 2 and most of a third chevron stripe. So I am definitely, I feel really good about the progress I've made on this. I haven't touched it in a couple weeks. I did pretty much all of this in like 1 week, just in the evenings after my son fell asleep before I went to sleep. So I'm feeling really good about this, and I'm just going to keep slowly working on it. The chevrons are only 5 rows. The chevron stripes are only 5 rows each. So I am 3 3/4 rows done with this third color before I move on. So we are definitely seeing progress there. And these chevron stripes are actually really, really quick. So they're a fun little win to get one color done. I'm not sure why I stopped in the middle of a row. I really don't know why I did that. I am using on this one, just as a refresher, we have Northern Bee Studio. It was a set called The Bee's Knees. Oh, sorry. It is The Bee's Knees, and the colorway of this set was Springtime Picnic. So the individual skeins do not have colorways associated to them that I'm aware of. This is a specially curated set. It's called Springtime Picnic, and it's 5 skeins, 400 yards each, for a total of 2,000. So I have plenty of yarn still. I'm doing really good there. We will kind of just see how it progresses. And yeah, so those are the 2 long-term whips that I have been working on. I have other long-term whips that I have not touched, but those are the 2 long-term whips that I have been working on. And I'm really pleased that I am making progress, even if it's small progress. And that is what's kind of fueling me along. But are you ready for my cast on? Yes, I cast on something else and I still have whips. I am one of the people with the mindset of, if I force myself to not start something new until I've finished something, I'm gonna get into that knitting rut. I need to be able to change it up. If none of my projects are speaking to me, I need to have that freedom to do something else. And if I have a lot of whips, like I do kind of right now, the long-term languishing ones kind of count in my mind, kind of don't. Right now I see it as I have 3 whips, and the next one I'm going to talk about is a fresh cast on. But I have 3 working whips. That's not a bad number for me. One of them, the new one, is actually pretty mindless for now. You'll see in a second. But I like to be able to have something easy and mindless and other more complicated, more engaging stuff. So 3 active working whips is not a lot to me. At one point in time I had like 10, so 3 is nothing. But I reserve the right to cast on something else, even if I don't finish any of these before you see me again. So that's just kind of my mindset on cast ons and when and how many. Not that you asked, but that's my mindset. So my cast on, I started it this week. Technically I swatched first. I'm gonna just tease you along for a second. I swatched first twice. I did 2 swatches. I don't like swatching, but because this is a test, I knew I had to. So the first time I swatched, which is this one, was with a US 4. Fabric's nice. You put something behind it and you're not gonna be able to see if it gets stretched out that it is skin behind there, because this is gonna be a garment. I mean, you can't see the writing through that. So I was happy with this, but when I went to measure it, I was just not quite meeting gauge. And this is a cotton linen blend. The yarn is Juniper Moon Farm Zooey. And it's made up 60% cotton, 60% cotton, 40% linen. The colorway is cocoa. I've had this yarn for ages. 2018, according to my notes. It's a long April 19th, 2018. Today is April 26th, 26th of 2024. So I've had this yarn for 6 years, and it's finally getting put to use, which feels amazing. This yarn is also still made, so if I needed more, I could get it. Obviously would not be able to get the same dye lot, but it's not going to be an issue. I have more than enough. I borrowed from another planned project to get this, and I'll talk about that more later. Anyways, so this was swatch number 1. I was able to meet gauge minus a stitch, or plus a stitch. Plus a stitch, minus a stitch. Gauge was supposed to be 22 stitches by 32 rows. This is 23 stitches by 32 rows. But because of the cotton linen blend, I knew it was going to grow. I knew it was, especially with time, grow, stretch out. And I just was like, no. So I swatched again. And I swatched again on 3s. So it's not noticeably different. This yarn is thick and thin, and that's kind of why you have some spots that are more quote unquote see-through, where you see more light behind it. It's got a thick and thin texture to it. So this is on US 3s, and I got on 3s blocked 23 again by 33. So at least this way, when it stretches, I had a little bit more give. I was only 1 row off. Like, my gauge after blocking, before blocking they were a little bit more different from each other, but after blocking it was just the row gauge that was different. And I opted to go ahead and start the project with the smaller needle for 2 reasons. The ribbing is, you needed 2 needle sizes, and the US 3 at 3.25 has a smaller needle that is a 0.5 millimeter smaller in my set. A US 2 is 2.75, where the US 4, being a 3.5, I did not have a 3 millimeter needle. So I ended up going with this one because of the nature of the yarn and expecting it to grow. Even if it doesn't grow right away, it's growing in time. So 2 swatches to be able to start. You're not gonna be able to tell. It's a cami. I am testing the cami, Alicia Plummer. Alicia Plummer. She's on Instagram. She's been a knitwear designer for years. I've tested for her before, once upon a time, back in 2022. Yeah, 2022. Late 2021, early 2022, I test knit a children's poncho for her. And so I knew testing for her was low stress. This is an 8-week test, and it's going to be a very basic cami. So I don't want to go into too much, obviously, because it's a test and this will be a paid for pattern. But here's what I have so far. I am on a cord that is too small. I am using a 24-inch cord because my finished measurement around is only going to be 31 inches, and I didn't want to use a 32 or is it 34-inch cord and stretch everything out while knitting. So I have only knit about 3 inches so far. The cami is going to be bottom up, but I am loving this fabric so far. So I did do the ribbing in a US 2 and switched to the US 3. I'm not giving away pattern secrets there. So, but ribbing, and then I am about 2 inches into the body of a pretty basic cami, but I think it's going to be quite the wardrobe staple, and I'm really, really excited to have it. I've never knit a cami before. I've never knit with a cotton linen blend before, so getting adjusted to that has been a trip. A trip, I will say. It is thick thin in nature, so let's see, I'll just do this so you can kind of tell behind my face how it gets a little thick and thin in there. Like this right here is hanging down is super thin, but then you also have some thicker bits, like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to get it to show. There's some thicker bits, which just makes the texture nice. The fabric weight isn't heavy. I think it's going to be great for the hot summers that we get here. And since this is an 8-week test, I feel confident that I'll be able to finish it in time. I'm technically a quarter of the way through the body. The base of the body, roughly. So I'll just kind of be plugging away at this for the next, hopefully not 8 weeks. I'm hoping I can get it done much sooner than the deadline. And if I have enough yardage, go for a second one. Finish this because I had to steal my needle tips. I don't know if you noticed, but there's no tips on my rose cardigan cable strip. The tips are missing, and that's because they're right here. So if I want to work on the rose, I will kind of have to unscrew the tips to work on the rose and then bring them back over for this, which isn't the end of the world, but it is what it is, because I do prefer metal needles. I have wood needles, which probably would have been the better option for this, but I'm afraid to switch to them at this point because I don't want it to mess up my gauge. But the next time I work with this yarn, I will probably do a swatch with wooden needles to see what happens with it, because I do still want to make the pattern I had originally intended this yarn for. And I've bought new yarn for. And so I will be working with this again. So I will re-swatch with wooden for that, I think, to see if it's just easier to knit with, because of the way this yarn is constructed, it's a little splitty with these sharp, I have high sharps, so they come to quite the point, and it does make knitting it a little, it's not completely mindless stockinette because the yarn is splitty. So that is my new cast on. So that is all of my project related news, updates, what have you, and so the next part of this is acquisitions, which I only have one yarn purchase, how do I want to phrase this? I made a purchase on a website. There we go. Tax day, actually, April 15th from Eat Sleep Knit. It is here, but I also have yarn that's in the mail on its way to me, but I didn't want to wait to film this because I had enough to share, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and share these acquisitions, count these for April, and because it's the 26th, when the other stuff arrives, I'll just count it towards May. But an update for the year, because I've been kind of doing this in each video of like yarn acquired versus used, and therefore overall for the year of stuff I've gotten rid of out of stash, given to someone, sold to someone, what have you. For the month of April, I have used 118 yards in the hat I showed you. This guy, 118 yards. I'm not going to count the whole skein because I still have half a skein left. If I had like less than 20 grams left, I would count the whole thing. But because I still have half a skein, roughly, give or take, I'm only counting what I actually used. So I've used 118 and that's it for the month. I have not destashed any this month, despite my every intention of doing a destash on a Discord I was informed about from Knit California's video. I will link her channel down below, but she talked about a Discord channel that you can destash yarn, and I have purchased from there. So I need to destash what's sitting actually directly underneath me. Yes, I have yarn stored in my daughter's room that I don't plan on using. But anyways, so I mentioned that the Juniper Moon Farms Zooey that I was using for the test knit I'm doing, I stole it from, I planned on making a Battersea, and I still do want to make a Battersea. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. It technically links you over to like her website, blog, what have you. But I still want to make that, but I realized that brown was probably not the color I would want it to be in. And so that's where it was perfect for the cami as a layering piece, but the Battersea, I want it to be like the show. So whenever I do get around to making that, and I may still try to do that this year, we'll see, based on other yarn I have coming, I might not. But anyways, I wanted to replace the yarn since I borrowed from one to make another. And I got 3 balls of the color Lagoon. It's this gorgeous blue. I mean, it'll be great. I probably won't wear it with my medium wash jeans, but like light jeans, yoga pants. If I get some black shorts or black pants, or I bought some linen pants at Costco actually recently, in like a khaki color. This would be great with. So repurchased these, and because of the tax sale. I blame the sale. I'm a sucker for a sale. And so that's those 3 skeins of these guys. They are considered a sport weight at 2. They have, where is it? I'm looking right past it. 284 yards a ball. You can pull from the center of these, but I generally pull from the outside just so that way when they collapse on themselves, they don't by pulling from the outside. But I have worked from balls like this where you can pull from the inside, and when they collapse on themselves, it's worse than when you like cake your yarn, in my opinion. So I pull from the outside on these. Oh, I just love this color. And then to get free shipping, not free shipping, I didn't get free shipping, but to hit the first level at Eat Sleep Knit, because they do their yarn-a-thon. I'm not going to try to explain that on this channel. You can go to their website and read all about it. But to hit the first level was to do 1,000 yards. Yes, I said it. 1,000 yards. To hit the first level, it got me a $5 gift or like $5 towards my next purchase with their shop. And so to get to that 1,000, I needed to do, I don't know, it was a little over 100 yards. So I didn't need a whole nother skein. So I got a couple minis. These are Emma's Yarn Practically Perfect Smalls. So it's the Practically Perfect sock yarn, but just in minis. So this one is in the colorway Mexican Wedding Dress. So it's got some fun pastels, some pops of that orange and purple. So Mexican Wedding Dress for this one. And then the other one I have is Cosmos. I want to make, from Laura Penrose, the Sweet Shop blanket. And so I think that kind of as I acquire some minis, I will kind of earmark them for that. It's technically a DK weight blanket, but I'm pretty sure she held fingering double for that. Or I mean, you can. Fingering held double is basically DK. So, but just to kind of have some fun minis, I'll just kind of pull them at random whenever I start that. But I need to kind of build up my stash of minis and leftovers. I'll use leftover fingering weight too, and leftover DK weight, heck. And I'm going to wait for a really good sale to get my main color of like a cream or pale, like a pale gray, a light gray, a very light gray. Might be better since I have kids, instead of white or cream. But so there's my minis. These are so soft. They are 181 yards a piece, 20 grams, sock weight. Gorgeousness. So that's my acquisitions that I have in my possession. I have an order on its way to me from Fangirl Fibers. It's a doodle set, inspired by Nightmare Before Christmas. And I look forward to making I don't know if I'm going to do a Halloween themed knit with that, but I have 2 of the doodle decks from Pacific Knit Co., I think is the name of it. And she has other doodle sets out there. So we'll see kind of what the colors lean me towards as far as what I end up using them for. But I did do this set that has the full 100 gram skein with the 5 minis. So And I don't remember what size minis. Are they 20 gram minis or are they 50 grams? I don't know. I don't remember. I pre-ordered them, but they're on their way to me. They'll be here next week. And then, like I said, I ordered some yarn from Discord. I think it's Hue Loco, colorway Glacier, worsted weight, 2 skeins. So those are already on their way to me. But then I think I'm going to try and hold off buying more yarn until I see some progress on not just whips, but also just finished things, whether they are whips or new things that I start and finish. Because I need to keep, I'm going to have more stash than I started the year with as soon as those 2 things arrive. So I need to get to knitting if I'm going to get back into the negative for the year, especially with an advent coming in December. So anyways, that's the yarn mindset moving forward, which kind of sucks because tomorrow is local yarn shop day. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to one anyway because my husband has to work. He doesn't normally work Saturdays, but he does have to work tomorrow. And so I'll have both kids and I don't feel like taking them to a yarn store, at least not the toddler. The baby could be okay because he'd stay in the carrier, but the toddler would just go hog wild and we're not having that. But yeah, so I'm still in the negative 741 yards until that yarn shows up. So I need to get knitting. The cami will not help much, or enough, I should say, in finished yardage. But if I can get the cardigan done, the rose cardigan, or my Ziggy done, that will be a huge boost because we're talking 2,000 yards potentially on the Ziggy alone. The rose, I had a couple skeins in at least one of the colors, if not 2, and then there's 4 colors, so that'll be a lot of yardage out whenever I get to finally finish this up. So my plans, my goals for the rest of April, the like 4 days we have left, 5 days, and the month of March is to, honestly, I would love to have the test knit done by the end of May. That would be ahead of schedule. She's giving us 8 weeks. And that would be about 6 weeks into it at the end of the month of May. But because it's sharing needles with my rose cable strips, I would just like to see that tank get done sooner. And then I can share it when she's ready to release the pattern, hopefully on here. And then definitely finish the first cable, the long cable, get it from 22.5 inches to 28 inches. I definitely want to see that happen in May. And doing only one, I know that's I know that's a no-brainer. I can totally do that. The rows do not take very long when I'm only doing one at a time. And I probably would have had that strip done if it weren't for the fact I was doing 2 at a time for the progress that I did make so far since last time. Anyway, and then I do want to finish the chevron stripes on the Ziggy because they really don't take that long also. So I think that these are reasonable goals for the end of May, especially May being one of the longer months, 31 days, and having some extra time off because my mom will be here visiting for Mother's Day. I have a half day the day she gets here, I have a half day the day she leaves, and then 2 days off framing the weekend. So I have some extra time with an extra adult around, so I should be able to get some yarny time in. And then not to mention Memorial Day weekend. So I think by the end of May, I will be in good shape. Sorry. But in saying that, we also have a few things going on in May. Graduation parties, only one party. And just some other fun stuff. But yeah, that's all I have. I'm impressed. I am only at like 37-ish minutes. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed my rambling nonsense, please hit like, hit subscribe, and catch my next one.